Chapter 6. The Papyrus House. Strangely enough, on the way home it was that very word love which Arifron used. "Little Flavius," he said, "if you love me, tell nobody of what happened today." "Oh, I wouldn't tell," said Flavius so seriously that Arifron was satisfied. The next day Arifron gave Flavius his Greek lesson at the usual hour, but he shortened the lesson, then took Flavius by the hand, and, as on the day before, began to hurry along the road and through the dumping ground into the Esquiline Valley. Clymene rose from her place the minute they came into the slave house, and Arifron took both her hands and kissed her pale cheeks and pale mouth. The other slaves stared. "We can't go outside this time," she whispered. "The foreman will not allow it. He is awfully cross today." "Then I'm going to work with you," said Arifron. He sat down on the bench beside her and reached for the work. Flavius came close to watch them. At one end of the long table was a jar of water, and in this stood the tall green stems of some plant or cane. The slave at the end was cutting them into the thinnest possible strips. Then these strips were passed on to the other slaves at the table, Clymene among the rest. "I'll show you," said Clymene to Arifron. She cut the strips across to exact length, laid them edge to edge on a tablet of wood, and spread glue over them. Then she laid other strips crosswise over them and pressed down with a flat piece of wood till there was no water nor glue left in them. "Did you know that the papyrus you write upon was made this way?" Arifron asked Flavius. "I've seen papyrus grass growing in the Nile." By this time Flavius believed that Arifron had seen everything in the world. Arifron tried putting the strips together. At first he could not do it as perfectly as Clymene, and Clymene kissed his hand on the table, pretending to scold him. Presently Arifron said anxiously, "Flavius ought not to be in here. He might get some disease, or at least get his tunic soiled so it would be noticed." "You'd better take him outside," said Clymene, and Flavius, who was getting tired, was glad to go. The dumping ground was certainly not a pleasant place for a boy to play. They walked on until they came to a clay bluff that looked cleaner than the other places, and here they found what Flavius was to call one of his treasures. Flavius saw it first, the edge of a wheel under the overhanging bluff. It was an old chariot thrown out to rot. In great excitement Flavius began examining it. "Arifron," he exclaimed, "it is the very chariot with the gilded pictures that I saw in Father's Triumph." "Yes," said Arifron, "it's a Corinthian chariot certainly. I wonder what dear friend of mine drove it with his horses." He fingered the rim lovingly. "The rim is of ivory. It's a wonder some jackal hasn't ripped it off." "Jackal?" repeated Flavius. "Human jackal," explained Arifron. "See, the far wheel is broken. That's the reason it was thrown out. They'd rather waste it than mend it." "They had so many," said Flavius. "Yes, so many." Arifron spoke with such bitterness that Flavius again realized he had said something wrong. Arifron went back to the slave house, and Flavius mounted the chariot and sat there, pretending to be driving horses. He was completely happy. A real chariot, and all his own. But very soon Arifron came back, bringing a boy with him. "This is Hiram," he said. The two boys gazed at each other, round-eyed like all young boys unable to get acquainted. "Look," said Arifron, helping them. "The wheel is broken. Do you think you could mend it, Hiram?" "I could if I had a hammer and some bolts," said Hiram. Arifron went off and soon returned with a broken hammer and some rusty bolts. Then the two boys fell to work. They needed a piece of wood for a spoke, so Hiram went out and found a piece on the dump. They worked faster and faster. It seemed only a moment until Arifron came for them. "Hurry, hurry," he urged, his voice strained. "It is late afternoon. I forgot myself. Hurry, Flavius." The two boys fell to work.